All right, let's jump straight in because today we are unpacking one of the most mind-boggling vanishing acts in modern business history. I mean, what if I told you a young CEO managed to raise $500 million from some of the absolute smartest investors in America, built a company everyone was calling the future, opened these gorgeous luxury offices in New York, Miami, LA, and then just vanished? Literally one night, he's just gone. No goodbye, no press conference, nothing. By sunrise, the company's bank accounts were basically empty, and employees couldn't even log into their own laptops. So in this explainer, we are mapping out the incredible $500 million illusion of a supposed visionary, Nathan Cross, and his company, WorkLoop. Picture this. Security finally forces their way into Nathan's all-glass office the morning after he disappears, and they find exactly three things: a cold cup of coffee, a locked laptop, and a handwritten note that just said, they believed what they wanted to believe. It is such a chilling message, right? This wasn't just some startup that tried hard and failed. This was a meticulously crafted illusion. The guy who sold America a dream had evaporated overnight, leaving this really haunting realization for everyone who bought in. So here is exactly how that midnight escape actually played out. Around 8 p.m., his executives and board members are frantically texting him, demanding answers. He ignores them. By midnight, Nathan is entirely focused on getting out. He's transferring files, packing up a hard drive, 2 passports, a burner phone, and almost $200,000 in cash into a black leather bag. Finally, at 3:17 in the morning, his private jet lifts off from a tiny airport outside Miami. He's looking out the window, his phone is still blowing up with messages from his team, and he just whispers, "Game over." But honestly, the game had been over for a really long time. Section 1, Selling a Fake Dream. To make sense of that escape, we really need to rewind 3 years. Nathan Cross wasn't some tech prodigy. He was a smooth talker from Phoenix who learned a thing or two from his used car salesman dad, and he realized something huge. Where there is small business pain, especially around HR and payroll, there is money. So he pitches WorkLoop as the operating system for American small business, a magical, automated, seamless platform to hire, pay, and manage a whole workforce with just one click. But the reality, it was a completely fake, clickable mock-up. No backend, no automation, no actual payroll engine. It was just a dream dressed up as a product. When an early investor actually asked how much of it was live, Nathan just smiled and said, "Enough to prove the future." And somehow that vague, totally manufactured confidence worked. One single pitch meeting netted him his first $1.2 million. He literally walked out to his car and laughed. This massive early win solidified a super dangerous mantra for Nathan that would define the whole company: sell first, build later. He somehow convinced himself that if he just hired fast enough and threw money at the product before customers noticed, reality would eventually catch up to the story. Section 2, Growth at all costs. Within a year, WorkLoop is this massive media darling, and Nathan is basically a LinkedIn celebrity. But the back end was a total disaster of manual fixes. When pitching a major New York VC named Richard Hale for a $150 million round, Nathan flat out cooked the books. He confidently claimed 18,000 active business accounts. The actual reality? Around 4,000, and most of them were furious. He bragged about best-in-class retention, while churn was actually skyrocketing. But you know what? Nobody looked too closely because everyone wanted to believe they were sitting on a gold mine. So WorkLoop secures the $150 million, locking in a staggering $1.1 billion unicorn valuation. Section 3, The House of Cards. As Nathan gets completely addicted to the spotlight, the private jets, the Miami mansions, his engineers are literally drowning in support tickets and massive payroll errors behind the scenes. This all comes to a head late one night with WorkLoop's chief financial officer, Megan Price. She was an experienced, careful professional. She saw that revenue was being counted way too early and canceled customers were still being listed as active. She walks into Nathan's office, tells him they have to restate the numbers, and he just refuses. Instead, he looks at her and asks, "Megan, what happens if we slow down right now?" Megan tells him the truth. If they slow down, they just correct course and fix the business. But Nathan's response was completely detached from reality. He just says, "No, we die. Startups are war." Megan stood her ground, and then she dropped the word that changed everything: fraud. She warned him that fraud is fraud, no matter how you spin it. Well, 2 weeks later, Megan was suddenly gone. officially removed as part of an organizational restructuring. She was a threat to the illusion, so she had to go. And here is where it gets absolutely wild. By the time the next funding round rolls around, they are burning through cash at an insane rate on office leases, private flights, and just crazy aggressive marketing. To survive, Nathan does what he always does. He doubles down. He pitches investors that they now have 60,000 active customers on this fully automated software. The pitch deck was flawless. Investors practically fought each other to give him money. He raises a mind-blowing $500 million, pushing the valuation to $4.8 billion. He completely masked the fact that they were essentially paying customers just to look like a success. Section 4. The Unraveling. Now, you might think a multi-billion-dollar fraud would get busted by Wall Street auditors or the SEC. Nope, the whole thing shattered because of everyday small-town customers. We are talking about an Ohio bakery, a Texas gym, a Florida cleaning company, a Georgia trucking company, a Colorado coffee shop. This wasn't just some spreadsheet glitch. This was real life. These small businesses were getting hit with severe IRS penalties, they were missing payroll for their staff, getting hit with surprise fees. The software was fundamentally broken, and when they called for help, there was no one on the other end of the line. The whole thing finally tipped over because of Linda Barrett, that bakery owner in Ohio. After WorkLoop's glitches left her with massive tax penalties and a totally unpaid staff, she had enough. She sat down in her bakery kitchen, still in her flour-covered apron, exhausted with tears in her eyes, and recorded a video. She said, "I trusted this company because they said they were helping small businesses, but they almost destroyed mine." That video spread like wildfire. It went incredibly viral, exposing the broken promises and kicking off an absolute public firestorm. From that moment, the collapse was blindingly fast. Within days, Linda's video sparked massive outrage, and all these other businesses started coming out of the woodwork. Within weeks, the internal panic was out of control. Nathan was screaming at engineers to magically make the fake automation real, and people just started quitting in disgust. By month 1, the public pressure was so intense that the board made a fatal demand, a full, independent internal audit. And audits look at receipts, right? Not stories. Nathan knew it was over. By month 2, facing total exposure of his fake numbers and offshore transfers, he packed that black bag and vanished. But we absolutely cannot skip over the human cost here. The morning Nathan bolted, hundreds of employees showed up to work to find their keycards deactivated, their laptops totally locked, and their bank accounts frozen. One young dad, Carlos, told a reporter, "I've moved my family across the country. Nathan looked us in the eyes and said we were building something that mattered. Now he's just gone." These were real people with kids and mortgages and visas, completely crushed under the weight of Nathan's ego. Section 5. The Illusion of Winning. When investigators finally dug in, they found that a massive chunk of that $500 million was spent doing nothing but keeping the illusion alive. And Nathan? 3 months later, authorities caught up with him. He was arrested in this tiny coastal town in Portugal, living under a fake name, still insisting he was just trying to save the company. The core takeaway here is pretty simple. A gorgeous office and a billion-dollar valuation mean absolutely zero if the foundation is built on a lie. Hype gets you attention, sure, it gets you the big pitch, but truth, real numbers, real trust, a product that actually works, that is the only thing that sustains you. Winning through deception is just losing slowly in a much more expensive suit. Investors, the media, the employees, the customers, everyone desperately wanted the WorkLoop story to be real. And Nathan? He wanted to believe he wasn't a fraud. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question that really echoes Nathan's chilling final note. In a business world that is completely obsessed with the next big story, are you buying the truth, or are you just believing what you want to believe? Take a second to really think about your own blind spots, because a great story is never a substitute for the truth. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep asking the hard questions.